Just to let you know, we're going to be talking this evening about teaching the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And I'm joined here by my colleague Ruth, who's going to help me talk about this. Okay. Um, I'll leave Ruth to introduce.
Hi, everybody. It's great to see so many of you joining us today. As usual, you will receive a certificate of participation and a webinar handout in the next few days. If you don't receive it, please email us at formazione@emilyworld.com. Don't worry, the handout will contain all the important information from this webinar, plus useful links and any worksheets that we'll be showing today.
If you don't receive it tomorrow, just check your spam. It often ends up there, but failing that, write to us and I'll get it to you as soon as possible. As you may know, the UN has been in the news recently. They had a meeting the General Assembly was meeting in New York, I think last week and the week before. Um, One of the things that you may not have heard them talking about this year, but I did notice there was a little bit in the news about the UN Sustainable Development Goals, or as we're going to call them sometimes in this webinar, the SDGs, just for shortness. Okay. They are 17 goals established 10 years ago in 2015, and they're highlighting the connections between the environmental, social, and economic aspects of sustainable development. So these are things that we've had some requests from participants in webinars to talk about this topic, and so it seems a rich area for lessons, whether they're little lessons covering other subjects, or you just want a topic that engages the students, particularly with these sort of sustainable development, environmental issues, social issues, things like that. Okay. For EFL teachers, they are a really valuable framework for integrating these meaningful real world topics into language learning. So things that students can really do a lot of research into and really find out a little bit about, like progress being made or unfortunately not being made. Okay. Let us know in the chat if you can name these SDGs. Okay, so they are 1 to 17. You can see around there. They each have a logo or a little image in there. Some of them are a little bit more obvious than others. You might be able to see like 14 and 15 are probably pretty obvious. 2 might be obvious, and I guess things like 5 is obvious, maybe 8 as well, but some of them are a little bit more ambiguous. Okay? Let us know if you can guess them. This is a fun activity to do with your students too. Okay, so let us know in the chat if you know what they are. We'll keep proceeding anyway. Um, by the way, these are goals that were established. They were hoping to have them to be all reached by 2030. So there is another 5 years to go, but as we'll see, they're not necessarily, some of them are going a bit better than others. I'll hand over to Ruth to tell us about the objectives.
By the end of this session today, we hope that you as teachers will be better able to, first of all, identify all 17 Sustainable Development Goals and explain their relevance to global education. Secondly, integrate practical EFL teaching activities on SDG themes into English language lessons and create strategies for promoting critical thinking and problem solving in students by discussing real world issues linked to the SDGs.
Okay. Just one moment. Sorry, Ruth, just let me know. Is there, I don't have a little box on the screen, do I? It's not.
No, everything is
Okay,
okay.
great, great. Sorry, we had a problem when we were setting up the webinar before. Okay. Anyway, the 17 sustainable development goals. There's a nice tongue twister for you. Okay, so what are they? Okay. I wonder if people have got some of them in the chat. Okay. So let's see. Okay, they are starting on number 1, no poverty, 0 hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production. Sorry, just one moment. And uh, climate action, okay, life below water and life on land, peace, justice, and strong institutions, and last but not least, partnership for the goals, which I guess is sort of making sure that we can actually implement these goals. That one of the goals is that the goals get implemented. It's all very well to have goals, but if they don't actually go anywhere, they're pretty useless. Okay, so um, I guess one thing you could do, as we sort of did ourselves, is see if they can guess the goals from the icon. Okay. Some of those icons, as you can see, for example, number 10, when you see it as an equal sign, okay, it becomes a bit more easier. If you look
That's
at it
true.
as a figure of eight, it might be a bit more difficult. So some of these you might need to help students with, give them some suggestions. What can they see? Things like that. Okay. I would suggest that you don't really need to necessarily get. I think it would be a bit hard for students to get the exact wording correct. Okay, but as long as they can sort of give some idea of what sort of topic it approaches. Okay. And in pairs or small groups, they need to make a title for each. Okay. And again, they could guess them if when they're not sure. They can make them up if they have no idea. They could even you could even brainstorm what some goals could be before you actually show them the icon. Okay. Some of them are much easier than others. Some hints may help. Okay, so I would imagine, and again, this is all in the handout. The easy ones are going to be things like zero hunger. In fact, Lorenza in the chat got that there. Good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, life below water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institutions. Um, as I said, elicit the objects in the icon. So what can you see? Can you see a bird? What type of bird is that? It's a dove. Okay, what's a dove a symbol of? What's that animal under the water? It's a fish. What would that represent? So, you could get them free associating the ones that they don't get. Okay, so I would imagine quite a few of them come up immediately. Okay, and then the that's really where you can get students eliciting the language from the students, a bit of peer learning, the students learning vocabulary from the other students is always a great way of, doing vocabulary by drawing on, however many students you have in the class. They're a really good resource to use to teach the others, I guess. Okay. If you have a few unguessed, I guess what you could do is put the titles up on the board and they can match them, or you could even give them one to each group and they have to come up with an idea for what that could be. Okay. And then finally, obviously, give them the actual titles, see how close they came to guessing them. And again, I wouldn't be emphasizing that a guess as no hunger is incorrect. We had zero hunger. Okay, this is not an incorrect guess. Okay. Um, we've made a handout here, so that will be in the handout, so you can use that and photocopy that with your students and use that in there. Okay.
Sorry, Josh, we've got a question here from Lorenza. She's talking about the partnership icon.
Let's
Can
hop
we go
back.
back to that?
Partnership for the goals. I think it sort of is encouraging countries to work together, or institutions and partnerships to work together to institute these goals. So certain things, for example, climate action is certainly something that I mean, one country can do a bit, but unless all countries are on the in the same direction, it's not going to work. Okay. So some of these things are things that could be dealt with in each country. Some a lot more of them depend on cooperation between countries and between institutions. Okay. After this, or instead of this, I guess, instead of that activity, but I would say maybe as a progression, okay, you could focus on the goals themselves. Now, the vocabulary in the titles is kept quite simple, and obviously this is, you know, as it's the UN, these are readily translatable into other languages, so you will find versions in pretty much every global language. So, you know, I'm not saying that the definitive language is English for
Mm.
these anyway, but obviously we're going to be using that in our English lessons. Okay. But there are also explanations of each goal, which includes more difficult vocabulary. For B1 and B2 level students, they could explore this language so that they can understand the goals better. Okay. What you could do, and I'm going to show you these descriptions in a moment, but give each pair of students 2 or 3 of the explanations on the right. Okay. Depending on obviously sharing them through the class, but you know, instead of giving each person one, maybe give a group 2 or 3. It doesn't matter if they overlap as well. So some students have the same ones, and then they can sort of try to paraphrase these explanations. So see if they can understand it well. Okay, expand on them. Maybe they could brainstorm ways of achieving these goals so they can end where we have, for example, number 1, end poverty in all its forms everywhere. What do we mean by poverty? Okay, we can obviously students are going to say something like poor people. But what does that mean in reality? Does it mean not having enough to eat? Does it mean not having a clean house or running water or a job? Things like this. You know, they could sort of look into definitions of these. Again, hunger. We all know what hunger is, but it's not, we're not talking about ending hunger, the sort of hunger you have between breakfast and lunch, as much as, you know, someone who doesn't have enough to eat in a famine, okay, or malnutrition, things like this. Okay, so all of those things, definitions of each sort of term in there. Okay, and you could maybe start them, give a definition or give a paraphrase of them. They could maybe guess which one you're talking about. And then they could do this sort of brainstorming, maybe some research too. Okay. And then students could obviously present their ideas to the class. Okay. This could be the first part of a further project, which requires them to research the goals, okay, the barriers to meeting the goals and the progress made. So there is a lot, and I put it in the webinar handout, a lot of information on these. Obviously, these are multinational, or let's say international goals. And so we've got lots of web pages. I know Wikipedia has a page on every one of these. The UN has a page on every one. There's a lot of videos and things like that. So even giving them one of them, there's a lot of details and things that they could research. And in that case, they're going to be exposed to a lot of really useful language. Okay, this is the sort of language that you're going to find in the news, on social media all the time. So it's really going to help them understand the news, social issues in English a lot better. That could lead into research activity. Okay, so meeting these goals by 2030, next 5 years. So we are, you know, 2/3 the way through to theoretically meeting these. It will be, I have to admit, it will be unlikely, okay, if not impossible, at least reaching them all. There are a lot of them that are, well, a few of them that are on track, okay, but you know, just because we're near the goal now doesn't mean we can't move further from the goal, okay. But does that mean that we should not try? So I've got this video, so we'll have a look at this video in a moment. And I think it would be really good to see the UN's point of view regarding the deadline. So, you know, I must admit, this is, as you can see, a video posted by the United Nations. Okay, but, you know, we can see what they say. I've linked to this in the handout too. So let's have a look.
It is so decided.
Can you hear that, Ruth? Sorry.
Yes, perfectly well.
2015, world leaders made a promise for the well-being of all people and the planet.
We need action
to reach the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. There's progress in life expectancy and disease prevention. there's greater gender parity in management positions. Many developing economies have seen a growing middle class. Safe sanitation and basic hygiene services are becoming the norm. More than 95% of the global population have access to mobile broadband networks. The future of energy is cleaner. Unfortunately, at the halfway point, only 15% of SDG targets are on track, and more than a third are stagnated or in regression. More than 780 million people face chronic hunger. More than 100 million families are fleeing war, conflict, and human rights violations. Social protection, education, and healthcare are still out of reach for too many. Human rights are under assault. With the planet warming at 1.1 degrees Celsius, extreme weather is wreaking devastation around the world. Biodiversity is being lost at an alarming rate. These global threats must be overcome with smarter solutions, renewed ambition and determination, and recognition of what has not succeeded in the past. We must commit investments from billions to trillions in increasing social protection and decent jobs, transforming education, digitalization, energy transition, food system transition, and environmental protection. To get there, we need global solidarity for the planet, for people, for generations to come.
No excuses, no delays. Promises made must be promises kept.
Okay, as you can see, you can look at those there. Patrizia, I think, or sorry, was it Patrizia? I lost it for a moment there.
Yes, correct.
About that. I can't, without interrupting the view, I can't share the link, but if you do look at this stock taking, what it will take, if you Google sustainable development goals and stock taking, I'm sure you'll find it. So you could use it tomorrow for sure. Okay. Anyway, students could really do a bit of research into the progress or the lack thereof towards meeting these goals. So again, I'm sure there's the other side of these you could also look at too. So people that is, as you can see, even along the bottom of this the video there's other ones explaining why we're unlikely to reach it. Okay. Another fun thing I thought could be a good idea is a SDG election. Now, these are sort of like sometimes you see in American films. I don't know if I've seen it in Italy, but people where they have a class election, you have a class president or a school president, something like that, for amongst the students. Instead of that, you could assign each student one goal, and again, doesn't matter if two students have the same goal, doesn't matter at all. Okay. And the students need to research that goal. So again, this could again be tied into that previous one where each pair of students has to research a goal and find arguments as to why this is the most important, why they think this is the one that should be focused on. Okay. Each student has 2 to 5 minutes, again, depending on their level of English. Lower level students might only be able to manage 1 or 2 minutes. Higher level students might be able to go for a bit longer. Okay, and you can push them for this sort of public speaking. And they argue for why that goal is the most important in front of the class. Okay, they could prepare visuals Okay, I would say I don't want them to use a pre-made YouTube video. If they want to make something, if they want to find some pictures, put together a PowerPoint slides, or even a document to photocopy or whatever, fine. They could find some data, they could present that. If they want to do it on the interactive whiteboard, that would be great too. Again, I don't really want a video. I don't think it would be a good idea for a video to make their point. Okay, that's made by someone else. Okay, and what you can really do, and this is I've put in the handout again. There's a few online polling tools like Mentimeter or They Said. I've actually got a link to a page where it considers the pros and cons for each of these ones. And you can let the students vote for the goal they think is most important. So you could spend a couple of minutes just putting in each goal into one of these things, and then the students have to vote on one. And I think you'd just have to emphasize to students they shouldn't be voting for their own goal. Okay, not that that's really a big problem, given that it's just one out of many students in the class, but you know, the student who is presenting that doesn't get to vote for that one. Okay. And some of these, one thing in the webinars we're going to be presenting this year, I've got sometimes these what I call switch ups, like an add-on activity or a change in an activity that could make the activity a bit more interesting. Okay. What you could do to follow on from this is the winning goal, that is the one that is voted by the most students as the most important, or at least based on these presentations, could be the basis of a future class project. So each student could research part of it. They could work together in teams or as a whole class to make some promotional material, and that could be promoted throughout the school or the community. You know, just as students often have do these sort of things, you know, promoting social goals. And it could be promoted. Maybe they could raise money for it. Maybe they could talk to other classes about it, or in a school assembly, things like this could be a really nice thing to take place. So get them involved, and obviously using their English. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, that came in a bit late. Okay. And something we often come back on when we talk about these sort of social issues or activities to do in class are class debate. Okay, we have had a webinar on class debate. So if you're interested, it's linked in our handout on our YouTube page. And they really provide a perfect opportunity for a classroom debate. I've got some ideas of debates, but this is by no means exhaustive. Okay, so some ideas, they could be used as a conclusion of this research project. Okay, so whatever they've researched, you know, it's very good, obviously, that this is not the first activity. They need to have a bit of knowledge about the goals first. Okay, they're really good because they, as I said, they lead in from these research programs. They combine the 4 skills, so reading and writing in the preparation. Okay, so they need to do some research. They need to write down what they're going to present, and then when they're actually presenting it, they're speaking, and the rest of the students are listening. So it really shows there how it's a real task that integrates all these 4 skills in making, you know, if any one skill is weak, then your presentation's not going to be as good. Okay, it really does require students to use persuasive language. Okay, and this is really useful for Cambridge speaking exams and university education, where they're going to be in English, judged on how they can present something, how they can explain something clearly, the sort of rhetorical skills that they've got. Okay, and obviously a really good thing about debates is they require collaboration and encourage a really student-centered classroom. I mean, look at the picture there we have where the student is the focus of the class and the teacher's just there, you know, observing as the others, and that's really what we want to see to maximize their speaking time, to maximize peer learning and things like that. And they can obviously integrate other school subjects so clearly, so you can read that into other classrooms, whether it's biology, whether it's economics, social issues, mathematics, even these sort of things, data analysis, all of that goes into it. Okay. As I said, we had a webinar on using debates in the English classroom, and I'm sure we'll have another one in the future. And this is not the time that not the first time that we've talked about using debates in the English classroom, even in these other webinars. So they're really useful things. If you haven't done them, okay, it's worth not just jumping into it straight away, to sort of plan a little bit so that you can make sure they run well, because you need to make a little bit of preparation for them. Okay, but we've tried to make it easy, so we've got that webinar on it. Okay. In that, as I said, I've got some topics. As I said, they're not exhaustive, but you could say, for example, choose 2 goals, contrast them, and see if one is more important than the other. So is gender equality more important than economic progress in developing countries? I think one thing that we've often talked about in class debates is not letting students choose which side they're going to go on. I think it's sometimes a good idea to assign them randomly, okay, so that students don't just argue for what they believe, but actually have to consider both sides and maybe argue for something that is not necessarily what they really believe. It really gets students to sort of work against, or maybe, how can I say, cover the blind spots in their vocabulary, in their English.
They're critical thinking skills, isn't it? Because I mean, we're going to activate the brains a little bit. They do know things about the world, and they do want to contribute to them. So we give them the opportunity to do a little bit of research about what they do not know or they do not believe in. They may have the opportunity to be able to change their minds, to explore a little bit more into what they actually think and why.
Yeah. Okay. One you could say, I mean, it's a bit blunt, but the SDGs are a waste of time. So for and against. Okay. So sometimes these debates, when they have them in British countries, they say, the argument for, the argument against one statement. Okay. How we could best achieve the SDGs, or maybe one in particular. Okay. Should wealthy nations do more to help developing countries meet the SDGs? So obviously, a lot of these things have been met in developed countries, whereas they're in developing countries, there's more of a challenge, right? As we saw in the video.
Lorenza has added another idea, and I think it's very task-based. She proposes to create the first example of partnership, for example. So what institutions, what countries could actually try and get and reach an agreement together and create a partnership.
Yeah, nice. In fact, that's, a goal in itself. So certainly promote that one. Okay. Is sustainable development an unrealistic myth? Okay. Is it possible to develop at a sustainable way? Okay. Should developing countries prioritize reducing carbon emissions over industrial growth? Again, this is something that arguments that have been made between developing countries, saying that no one was worrying about carbon emissions when they were developing. The rich countries were developing. Now the developing countries are getting criticized for doing exactly the same thing that other countries did 50 or 100 years ago. Okay. Which other goals should be added to the SDGs, which sort of brings me to the last of our activities, and that could be a fun activity, is, first of all, would achieving all the SDGs end all suffering in the world? Okay, so is that really what we're saying? I don't think so. And so I think, could we add number 18? So we could add more goals, so 18, 19, 20. Okay, if you could add one more, what would it be? Okay, some suggestions have been made, and you can if you're interested, you can post some suggestions in the chat if you've got ideas. Some sort of things that some people have said are blind spots are clean air, okay, strengthen democracy and end autocracy, okay, end population growth, a non-toxic environment, stop animal cruelty, a meaningful and safe digital life. Okay, so these sort of things, again, be good to elicit ideas from students first. If you don't get a lot of them, you could suggest some of these. You could also do a bit of research. There's some links in there to think about a possible 18th goal. Okay? And again, students could research these potential goals, make presentations, choose one that they think would be a good idea, and debate which one is the best 18th goal. That brings us to almost the end of our webinar. So that's the ideas we had for the Sustainable Development Goals. I'll let Ruth conclude the webinar a little bit here.
So let's recap. So what was the conclusion here? The SDGs offer a unique opportunity not only to teach language skills, but also to inspire your students to think critically and engage with the global challenges. They are guaranteed to engage students who will be the ones who face the challenges of meeting, sustaining these goals, to be honest. I mean, it's up to them, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. As the next generation who's going to be taking over the world, I guess it's worth them getting to think critically about it. And obviously, as I said, these come in many different languages, but most of the discussion is going to be centered around English, at least on the internet and in these world forums like the UN. So it really helps if you can sort of develop your English in these areas.
The key is to engage your students in issues of sustainable development, getting them to see the importance or otherwise of the individual goals. Any issue that engages students can be used to encourage fluency in spoken English. I think everything that we've been discussing here has a lot to do with how we come across, how we express our opinions, how we use persuasive language, and that has to do with intonation, fluency, and getting English in motion, using it and practicing it.
Yeah, and I think as you can see, there's 17 of them, so it gives you quite a variety of things for students to find something that interests them or something they don't know much about and do more research on that. It's certainly a lot of how can I say, a lot of availability of threads that they might choose to pursue.
And obviously, there are endless amounts of material for classroom use regarding the SDGs. We have included an extensive list of links in the handout, and you can also use ChatGPT to make up other tasks. It is quite interesting the amount of information available to us these days, especially on these current topics. So why not? Why not create new tasks, explore what all that material that is available there can do for us as teachers and for our students as learners?
Yeah, exactly. I think, we can use this AI to make our preparation easier for the classes. And I think you'll find a lot of, I include a lot of links that have other activities. So there's infinite activities that you could do or worksheets that you could print off to help you with these.
So any suggestions? We always welcome your ideas for future webinars. So please get in touch with us. You can put them in the chat now, send us an email, and let us know what would you like us to help you with.
Yeah,
So we
just
can
to point
prepare
out,
this.
I mean, this was a suggestion that came up in the chat several times. So just to let you know, this is a response to this slide. So if you do suggest things, feel free to email us and I'll put it in the chat now and we will certainly pursue this.
And thank you very much, everybody. Again, as usual, you will receive a certificate of participation by email soon. And if you don't, please do get in touch at formazione@mlaworld.com if you don't receive it in the next week. There is a handout in the email that you will be sent along with a certificate. And that's where you can see all the worksheets and activities used in the webinar, as well as the useful links. If you don't receive it again, please get in touch. And from
Yeah.
next week, we have something very interesting starting. Josh, would you like to let us know what's the series that we're
Yeah,
welcoming from next week?
next week, we're going to start what we call a masterclass. We've run one or two of these before, and this is a series of webinars that are going to be on special educational needs and disabilities, either known as in English as SEN or SEND. These are going to be practical strategies for teaching. We can do different webinars on different aspects. So, for example, some general things, some about teaching online, some in person. We're also going to be talking about exams and assessments. I really encourage you to join us. It will be a series of webinars, so while you can join them one by one, not necessarily follow them all. I really would encourage you to follow all of them because you're going to see how it overlaps. We're going to have a few experts in the field, including MLA staff members who have special or expertise in this, and joined by some of our teachers, both our online teachers and our teachers who work in person, to talk about these and their experiences with them, and our experiences, and hopefully also some assessment people from outside of MLA. I really hope you can join us. So, and thanks to Ruth for helping me with this webinar. And thanks to all of you. As I said,
Thank you.
please join us in the future. And we'll be back with Sen next week, and then many different topics in the weeks ahead. Okay. Bye.